The Velvet Revolution of 1989 was a period of radical change in Czechoslovakian society. The communist government of 40 years collapsed in the face of widespread public uprising that came to be known as the Velvet Revolution.
For 40 years, Latter-day Saints had lived without religious freedom, subject to the whims of the secret police. One of those who experienced these restrictions was Olga Kovarova-Kampora, a young adult who converted to the church after meeting a member of the church while she was at university in 1983.
In today's episode, we talk about what life was like in Czechoslovakia and how the Velvet Revolution affected Latter-day Saints.
This is Saints Volume 4, the podcast. I'm Tessia Tsai.
And I'm James Perry. Newfound religious freedom in Czechoslovakia. Following a 1949 coup, Czechoslovakia became a communist state that quickly eroded religious liberties and individuals' rights. However, Olga Kovarova grew up in communist Czechoslovakia knowing nothing different. Many of the things taken for granted in Western countries were alien to her and others like her.
The entire childhood, teenager years, and a good part of my young adulthood in communist Czechoslovakia. So the way I would just kind of describe it, what it felt like was you cherished every toy you got as a kid. If you got a watch, it felt like for an adult here in the United States to get Ferrari or Porsche. So it was really something pretty unique if you got anything that was like a watch or something like that. Also, for a family to afford vacation was something that was absolutely just like above any average, just to be as a family together for a week, even at some lake in the Czech Republic. It was very lavish type of a vacation because most of the people, they didn't have any vacations. Growing up in a country like that, having banana was a gift of a Christmas. You would not have bananas in any other seasons of the year, or oranges, or any type of tropical fruit. That was something as a very special, unique thing that was just only considered for holidays. There was only one type of a car that you could afford, and it was called Škoda. I think that it's today too, but it's just coming from completely different vehicle in today's world. But in those times, most of the cars were white Škodas, white color. So if you had a Škoda that was a yellow color, you were just, again, it was just like, wow, you were special. How did you do that? What happened? So that you can see the choices were quite limited. As a kid, I didn't see that. But of course, as you then grow up and become adult and you see how the choices are a little bit more limited, it just became more obvious to me that there was a limitation.
Well, there are often limited options with regards to food or commodities that could be bought. These limitations extended into other aspects of life, including religion, politics, and media. Olga's parents worked hard to provide for their family, and although life wasn't easy, they did the best they could.
My family actually got Škoda, but my dad and my mom, they were saving money exactly for 13 years. It took just 13 years. And I remember like today, it was this huge adventure that finally we just get the money. And my parents, they had to drive to the place where it was the factory. And so they took a bus. And then on the way back, they came with the car. And I remember like today that it was evening. We lived in a house and we had a garden and we had also a garage. And so I remember my dad and my mom just kind of like, you can sit in the car, but be careful so that you don't get your feet dirty all the time. But then I feel like, wow, I'm so special. We have a car. And it felt just so, I think I probably felt like when the astronauts go to the space again, it was just something so special. And you realize like, oh my gosh, we made it. We made it as a family and we now can travel. We can do things. It was a fun experience for sure.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was formally recognized in Czechoslovakia in 1928, and the country was dedicated by Elder John A. Widstow the following year. Latter-day Saint missionaries and members began sharing the gospel with others, and congregations were soon opened in a number of communities. These congregations persisted during the Second World War despite the hardships caused by Nazi occupation. In April 1950, however, after communist officials banned the church from the country and expelled the remaining missionaries, members were no longer allowed to meet for public worship. In time, members found a careful balance between maintaining their faith and staying out of trouble with the secret police. But all church activities were monitored and suppressed. Many Czechoslovakian saints had limited gospel materials because of security concerns and little access to translated works.
Going from having nothing or just really bare minimum as far as church materials, even speaking about the amount of Book of Mormon that we have had available and the Doctrine and Covenants, to a certain point, it was not even translated at all, or part of it, or some only parts of it. And so having the scriptures being translated, and then, of course, having the words of the living prophets, having the general conference talks that were actually current, that you got the word of the living prophets the same year as they spoke. That was something that was just really very exciting, because we usually, if we get any conference talk that was translated, it was something that was a year, 2 or 3 years ago that happened. So, of course, that was very huge.
Although materials were sometimes severely delayed, over the years there was a drip effect of gospel materials making their way to the saints in Czechoslovakia. Eventually, the government tolerated the saints meeting together privately in homes under a don't ask, don't tell policy, in which small groups of members had to stay out of public settings and avoid alerting possible informants. In 1975, a district was organized for the Czechoslovakian saints, and increasingly there were closer ties to the saints in East Germany, who would occasionally visit and bring supplies and news.
The dedication of the Freiburg Temple in the German Democratic Republic in 1985 allowed other Latter-day Saints in the communist countries of Eastern Europe, such as Czechoslovakia, to attend a temple and enter into sacred covenants. We asked Olga about the time she was sealed to her parents, who had joined the church through her influence.
It was just really a beautiful experience, one of those very sacred experiences that you can have as a child of parents, and seeing something that is quite marvelous. Because what happened was that we, all of us, first got our own endowment the first day. And that was beautiful. And then the next day, we were going to do the sealing. So the first thing was my parents being sealed for time and eternity. And then I was just sealed to them. It just was so beautiful. My parents had a really great marriage to start with, and just receiving the gospel in their lives. They joined the church in their 60s, embracing it completely with full heart, and then just seeing them kneeling at the altar and being sealed together for time and eternity. You felt like you are experiencing part of heavens. And seeing the love in their eyes and feeling that love that they have for each other, it's just something that I won't forget. And then being asked to kneel next to them at the altar and place my hand on their hands and be sealed to them. And that was just beautiful. I would never, ever expect that I would have an experience in my life like that. And just knowing that it was for time and eternity, and feeling that spirit of it, it's just beautiful. It just stays with me until today. My parents passed away, both of them, but there is a connection. I feel that. I feel how they cheer for me in good times when I have got success in my life, and I feel how they are trying to sustain me when I'm sad or when there are challenges. So that is something that never, ever anybody can take away from me. I just know that it's there and it's beautiful.
The Velvet Revolution was a peaceful movement in late 1989 that toppled Czechoslovakia's communist regime. Inspired by the fall of the Berlin Wall, Protests erupted after a student rally was suppressed on November 17th. People demanded democracy and civil freedoms. Negotiations with the Communist Party led to its leadership's resignation and the appointment of a new government. This non-violent transition marked the end of communist rule, paving the way for democratic reforms and the eventual split of Czechoslovakia into the Czech Republic and Slovakia.
It was just like a patient just waiting for the lab results and getting a clean bill from a doctor that he or she is just free of any cancer. That's what it felt like. Lots of tears of joy and just sense of inner freedom, not only freedom on the outside, but just inner freedom that you will be able to raise your children in a place that is completely okay with your children to believe in God.
Czechoslovakian saints had spent years praying and fasting for a time when they could meet again in public. Several years earlier, in a chance meeting with Elder Thomas S. Monson in 1985, Olga heard him share what appeared to be a prophetic promise.
He said, quote, budete překvapeni, jak velké a významné změny se udějí v této zemi v příštích 3 a 4 letech. Přijde doba, že i zde bude církev působit svobodně a bude uznána vládou této země. Až tato doba nastane, pak si vzpomenete na má slova a poznáte, o čem bratr Monson mluvil. So I translated the words of President Monson. He said, quote, you will be surprised what kind of marvelous changes will take place in your country in the next 3 or 4 years. It will come a time that also here at this place, the church is going to be existing freely and your membership will be recognized by the government of this country. When this time will come, you will remember my words and you will know what Brother Monson meant. So that's my rough translation into English. I had this goosebumps because I was there. I was in that meeting. It was 1985 and the Velvet Revolution happened in 1989. And he said in 1985 that not only that will happen, but he was very specific in the next 3 or 4 years. And sure enough, it happened in 1989. So in 4 years. That's something that was marvelous. So that was my first meeting with President Monson. I think my first meeting really with the living prophet was when I first came to United States for a general conference and I saw President Benson. And I was in the audience in the old tabernacle at that time. And I saw him walking. And I felt something that I have never felt before. And it was the amount of heavenly love that was really radiating from this man. I mean, he was really far away. I was somewhere in the middle of the old tabernacle in one of those benches. But I saw him and I just felt the love that this man has for everyone. And it was a life-changing experience to me. It transformed my life.
This transformation, both of Czechoslovakia and of Olga, opened up a whole new world for her where she was free to be who she was without needing to hide it. It also meant she could experience different cultures and societies.
I love to travel, and I remember just having that freedom to travel to places where we are not allowed to be. It just felt fantastic, being able to see other cultures and the way people live and speak different language and express their lives in the way they live. It's just so always just inspiring to me, and to be able to see that, it was just wonderful.
The Velvet Revolution also allowed families across borders to be with each other again. Repression and threats against dissidents and political prisoners had caused many people to flee Czechoslovakia over the years. Now they could finally be reunited.
Just freedom to travel was really huge to me personally after, what has happened. Also, seeing the relatives outside of my country that I was not able to see for basically my entire life. Like my mom, she had uncle who escaped Czechoslovakia, and they were not able to see each other the entire time. And then being able to see my uncle, whom I only knew from pictures, I never had a chance to hear him on the phone because it was not possible. That was something so beautiful, not only for me, of course, for my parents, especially for my mom.
As people began to enjoy the freedoms to travel and associate freely with others, it took time to adjust to the new way of life. Olga told us more about what it was like to meet publicly for the first time after the Velvet Revolution.
I would visit my hometown in the morning, the sacrament meeting, and then I would travel in the afternoon on Sunday to a bigger city where I worked. And so I would go for the afternoon sacrament meeting there. And because it was still in small places, it was more like an intimate family gathering that I would describe like a celebration. Like you would come to a birthday party, but it was a sacrament meeting. Everyone felt relieved and people hugged each other and cried tears of joy. People just were so happy that it's over, that it's just completely a new future for us.
For Olga and other people of faith, the Velvet Revolution was seen as a form of deliverance. Freedom of religion had been restored to Czechoslovakian society. Latter-day Saints could once again meet publicly, but there was also the opportunity to now share the gospel publicly, which had long been illegal and dangerous to attempt.
I think the big change is that you didn't have to hide that you believe in God. I think that was really a big one for me personally. The other change for me was that there was suddenly freedom of speech. So being able to say what I meant and being able to say what was really deep in my heart and what was dear to me and not being afraid to hide it, it felt just amazing. I have never had experienced that until that point. To be able to carry Bible or Book of Mormon publicly, I didn't have to pay attention to wrap it up, to make sure that it's somewhere that it cannot be found, to be able to sit on a bench in a park and open it. That felt so amazing to me. I had complete freedom to worship the Lord, not only in secret, but that it was just now the way who I was.
For Olga and her fellow saints, it was a dream come true to be able to freely listen to and read the words of the prophets without fear of arrest or interrogation.
We knew that we have a living prophet. We knew that we had apostles. We saw their pictures. We knew their names. We sustained them, but we didn't know too much about them. And so being able to listen to what they had to say and reading their words, it was just a great treasure for all of the members. It was very dear to us. It was something that we never, ever had before. You know that you have a living prophet. You believe in that truth, but you don't know what they speak. And suddenly you do have access to it. So people really treasured that. It was one of the greatest gifts that I think that we received as a result of gaining religious freedom in my country.
This newfound religious freedom allowed others to learn about the restored gospel. In 2016, the Prague Czech Republic stake was organized with Martin Pilka, a man Olga had introduced to the church, called as the first stake president.
Despite years of waiting, the Czechoslovakian saints found ways to worship the Lord as best they could. It had required patience and faith, but as they trusted in the words of Elder Monson and other church leaders, they were able to sustain one another until religious freedom returned to their country once more.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Saints Volume 4. I hope you come away with new insights, perspectives, and an appreciation for the history of the church. If you'd like to share those thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. And you can email us at saintspodcast@churchofjesuschrist.org.